Okay. I think let's kick off now, Ghada, if it's fine with you.
Yeah.
So
how many
over
do
to
we
you,
have so
Ghada.
far? All right. Thank you so much, Patrick.
We are almost 30 of us, Ghada.
Okay. Okay, that's very good. Really, thank you all to be here today, availing your time for this important dialogue. This is really in the context of facilitating partnerships, especially between the African Development Bank, AfreximBank, and the African vaccine manufacturing community. There is a lot for the community, for the companies, but there is a lot also against it. There are lots of challenges, and this is how we address together, we discuss together. This webinar has been the idea of Patrick and friends, actually, as we meet at the AVM meetings, and they have heard what the AfDB has planned to do in supporting the sector. So they really wanted to bring the community closer to us, okay, so that we hear from them, their challenges, their needs, but they also want to hear from us what our plans are, what our financial tools are, what we can offer and what we cannot offer. We are very happy that VP Solomon, our Vice President of Private Sector Infrastructure and Industrialization, has really availed time to open this webinar today with Patrick. Just this shows the importance that the African Development Bank is really putting on this agenda, and actually has a great belief in the manufacturing community, actually. Thank you so much, and I hand it over now to VP Solomon to give his opening remarks, followed by Patrick. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ghada, and good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, depending on where you are. I'd like to welcome all of you to this important dialogue between the African Development Bank and the African Vaccine Manufacturing Initiative. We're glad AfreximBank has also joined us today. We immensely thank the AVMI for forming a much needed platform for the African vaccine manufacturers to align industry perspectives and consolidate the know-how and expertise. Through you, the African Development Bank looks forward to gathering a deeper understanding of the manufacturer's technical and financial challenges and needs to facilitate government advocacy, and also to adapt our financial and non-financial solutions as the African Development Bank. We're glad that we have more than 30 manufacturers from various countries, including Egypt, Nigeria, South Africa, Ghana, Kenya, Mauritius, Uganda, and Rwanda. I think some people are still going to join in, so look forward to them joining. As you may be aware, the African Development Bank is exerting its utmost efforts to support the implementation of the African Union and the African CDC vision of producing locally 60% of Africa's routine vaccine needs by 2040, and to also achieve 70% local production of our pharmaceutical production versus imports. We recognize the substantial financial investments required. We, as of now, are targeting $1 billion to finance pharmaceutical and vaccine production capacities, and also leveraging partner contribution to at least altogether deploy about $3 billion worth of financing for African production. We align our efforts with partners for maximum impact. So, for example, through a co-financing with sister institutions such as AfreximBank, IFC, EBRD, the Islamic Development Bank, capitalizing on the WHO's nominated NRA hubs, and supporting the formation of the African Medicines Agency for Hire and harmonized standards, and facilitating effective tech transfer, access, and know-how in collaboration with industrial partners through the establishment of the Africa Pharmaceutical Technology Foundation. Ghada and team can share more with you, but this has been established, by the African Development Bank, but as market infrastructure for pharma and vaccine production companies under the auspices of the African Union. So by 2020, there were 10 small production units of less than 2 million units each in terms of vaccinations. My understanding is the triangulated estimates show that Africa needs more, probably between 5 to 10 regional vaccine production platforms, each producing between 30 to 300 million units each. However, these may not benefit from economies of scale. So from a commercial viability perspective, we encourage the manufacturers to consolidate in an already fragmented market, explore joint ventures within and across borders, negotiate solid tech transfer agreements, hold close engagements with PAVM to finalize the ongoing exercises of market shaping and continental pool procurement mechanisms through the advanced market mechanism. As a large share of the vaccine offtake will be dominated by non-Gavi members by 2025, there will be at least 18 countries. AVMI and PAVM could negotiate bilateral commitments from alignments between African governments. The technical teams will share the technical plans and financial tools. We look forward to hearing your voice, project challenges, market issues, and importantly, where you envisage potential advocacy, policy shaping, and financing roles for the bank and partners. We are going to be very flexible. We're going to be very aggressive in terms of how we support you financially. We're going to think out of the box. In select cases, we'll look at equity investments, especially if it's going to support scaled regional production. We would also look at debt financing directly with partners. We would also look at debt financing where we utilize commercial banking partners in markets if, for example, it's to support you in acquiring APIs to actually increase utilization of the current capacities that you have. So I look forward to the report of the proceedings of this dialogue and welcome you to stay engaged and explore concrete collaborations, not only with the African Development Bank, but also partners as we aim together at achieving the 2040 vision. Thank you very much. I think it's over to Patrick. Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Solomon. Thank you very much for this, what I consider to be an open door to engage. And we are certainly excited about this opportunity. I think that when we connected with Ghada, specifically at the June meeting in Addis, we said that this needs to happen as soon as possible. And the reason for that is that we as on the manufacturer side have been chiseling away at trying to build this capacity with its associated challenges, and one of which is access to finance. And yet we heard and we kept on hearing that there's money available, and the African Development Bank in particular had set aside this money and had a vision and a strategy behind it, but which was a surprise to us, well, some of us, let me put it that way, and said, well, then we need to talk, because obviously we need to build this bridge from two sides, and then we need to make sure that it connects. And so I think this is the first step in that exercise, that bridge building exercise. And I think what we are wanting out of this is that the two ends of this bridge will be more aligned to connect over time and over in the immediate future, rather than miss each other as we come to the center. So we are very, very excited to be involved in this. So thanks to you, thanks to your team for the opportunity to engage. I do want to encourage the participants on this call that this is not a set of presentation sessions. Yes, we will go through some presentations, but it's just to set the stage for a robust discussion to take place. And to my vaccine manufacturing colleagues, I ask you to have your comments and questions ready and prepared, because I might surprise you and volunteer on your behalf to offer comments. So don't fall asleep or go to the men's or ladies' room at an inappropriate time. So again, thanks to you, and we're excited about the possibility of connecting and what this might do in terms of impacting the establishment of this capacity on the continent. So thank you very much, and Ghada, back to you.
So Patrick, before Ghada comes in, let me just say, make some additional comments based on your response. Just to demonstrate that, we want that convergence you talked about. We've hired Mr. Nazim Mohammed, as our, pharmaceutical and vaccine, industry specialist to help us really bridge that gap. Because we've had this, action plan for probably about 3 years. We have not, seen it implemented in terms of financing, particular, African, vaccine and pharmaceutical manufacturers. We want to really support, local production, but we have to do it really in terms of bankable projects or bankable initiatives. And so, this is also where we need to really understand what the issues are. We need to see more bankable business plans, and definitely we would respond. As I've said, this is a very important area for us. It doesn't really stop on the pharma vaccine end. It also goes into healthcare, because we're very focused really on Africa being prepared for the next set of pandemics. But also really strengthening Africa's health systems on a permanent basis. So let me just leave you with the team, but to say that I'm always reachable. This is a top priority for President Adesina. It's part of the reason he even envisioned the creation of the Africa Pharmaceutical Technology Foundation, which is something that we are implementing and operationalizing now. So I want to assure all the stakeholders here that we're very ready to look at things from a commercial basis. We understand, at least in the vaccine end, the pooling of procurement is going to be critical to that. And so this is where we would also work with PAVM very closely, especially with the number of countries that are going to come off GAPI by 2025. We have to be innovative. We have to look at things regionally. We can't look at things just nationally. And this has to be a continental approach. So thank you very much, Patrick. And I'll hand over to Ghada now. And I beg of you, if it's okay, I will depart in a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This is really appreciated, VP. So in the next half an hour, we will have 15 minutes, and we will make that really very quick because, as Patrick mentioned, this is really more about a dialogue, about discussion rather than presentations. We will be also happy to share all the deck, and you can come back to us for more information. So half of the time in the next half an hour will be run by myself and Fernando. And then we would also like to give the floor to our colleague and friend Zitto from AfreximBank as well, right? So, very quickly, I just wanted to set some context to what's coming of the slides. You are the community, but we really also wanted to share with you, as VP Solomon mentioned, like the birth actually of our pharmaceutical and vaccine manufacturing action plan. It's come from a need. It's come from really a deep interest from the bank to have a structured way of looking at the issue and a structured way of supporting you. Since we're talking about vaccines, of course, the 1% of locally produced vaccines has really pushed us to go and study the market, study the issues, in order to come up with a niche for the bank and what the bank can do to support the community. Of course, as I mentioned at the very beginning, there is a lot happening for the vaccine manufacturing community. Away from the COVID now, we know that there is a strong, demand and a strong growth in the market. This is because of the demographics of the continent, the needs really to fill the gaps in vaccinating our children and people. but also, of course, the evolving economics driven by new technologies, and the cost of producing now is going lower and lower. So opportunities are getting more and more, for the vaccine manufacturing community in Africa, so as to really emerge and to grow. And of course, political, regulatory, and environments are also supportive, all of that. But again, this is what has really pushed us to go into this niche market now. But of course, you all know the bank stands really for development at the end of the day, and we look at the health rationale, we look at the socio-economic rationale to support this sector, and of course, the rationales are ample. We want security of supply of our routine vaccines in the continent. We definitely want you to locally produce Africa-specific, vaccines, depending on our burden and our context. And of course, there are lots of opportunities, and you could tell us about all the skills, the capacities, the jobs, and also the foreign currency that you could attract to your countries, and also socio-economic impact of supporting such an important infant industry. Of course, we align, the AfDB Alliance, as VP Solomon mentioned, we align with the Africa CDC, Africa Union vision. This is what is everybody is, coming together to work on. Of course, we, even though we have our 2030 targets for the pharmaceutical essential drugs, basically, and the numbers there are about 70% to be produced locally, right? But when it comes to the vaccines, we align with the Africa CDC targets of 60% by 2040. Again, going into the demand and the supply, you all know it, but we know very, very well that the market today, as it was in 2020, as we came out of, or during COVID, it was 1.3 billion, actually very, very small compared to the global market indeed. And people have been estimating. You could also give us some comments on these numbers. We know that it may grow by up to 5.4 billion by 2030. And of course, most of this will be coming not from COVID vaccines, but mainly, like routine vaccines, HIV, malaria, etc. But then, of course, we all know where some of the binding constraints lie, of course, in the supply, in the offtake and all of that, which is now really dominated by Gavi and UNICEF. And of course, we all know also about the mechanism by which this happens. Actually, you have Gavi really working on the vaccine selection, the demand forecasting, creating vaccine investment cases, and reviewing the country applications. But then UNICEF is the one that runs the end-to-end procurement processes and interacts with suppliers and so on and so forth. So we try to understand really how all this really functions in the market. But of course, and this is very important for all of you, because we are reviewing a number of vaccine producing projects in our pipeline, and usually we come to the question of the market. What is your market? Where are your offtake? And of course, this question is a systemic question. It doesn't, and the issues are systemic issues and systemic failures in the market. PAVM, yourselves, AVMI, we, the bank, and others are trying to really work together with Gavi and others so as to create and shape this continental market run by Gavi. But of course, since there are a number of countries that will be graduating from Gavi soon, 5 of them. But then, in addition to the non-Gavi countries, this is about 30% value of the market, perhaps. And this is where sometimes we talk about with the manufacturer about, okay, what are your, agreements or bilateral negotiations with countries who are out of Gavi or who will soon graduate from Gavi. So this is an important part of and we really need to learn from you. How can you bridge the gap there also? We all know, how the market looks today and who is really providing to the continent all of these routine vaccines. And I think this slide is, is shared elsewhere as well. But of course, by 2019, even 2020, even today, this slide has not changed because we and other partners are trying really to support in the emergence of new projects and new companies. We still know that the capacity is still the same as perhaps in 2020. Then moving very quickly into our thoughts about how we can support the vision. So it's not only going to be the bank alone, the bank with other partners, but we did some estimates actually to the investment cost of reaching that vision by 2040. And some estimates look at perhaps 600, maybe this is very conservative, up to 1.2 billion dollars. Of course, depending on certain technologies and manufacturing methods, and so on and so forth. I don't want to delve into this, but definitely this is building on the emergence and the support of the mRNA technology in the continent. And generally, the estimates have really focused on about 5 plants. Maybe let me just, Yeah, so we have a couple of scenarios there. And again, we welcome your thoughts about these scenarios. So it could be like 4 plants, mRNA, and 1 egg-based, or 4 bioreactor-based facilities and 1 egg-based. But like I said, you can look at all this when we share with you these slides. But the focus really today is all of this. We had to study the market, we had to study the technologies and the estimates so as to carve a niche for the bank. So again, our support to the vaccine manufacturing industry is not going to be in a vacuum. It is part of our support to the pharmaceutical industry in Africa in its totality. And as I mentioned also that we put together a vaccine, a pharmaceutical vision for the continent by 2030 for the continent to really move the needle by producing locally up to 55% of its essential drugs, basically. And so this is the vision, and we looked at how we can achieve this vision. Of course, we worked with many experts, with manufacturers, with governments to look at the pillars of such a strategy if we would like to reach this vision. And basically, we all know that the issue is really about building capacities, manufacturing capacities, helping new manufacturers to come on board, those that are existing to help them really grow and increase their production lines. So this is what you see at the top. This is really the strategic pillar. It's about increasing the maturity of the industry. And here we will support fill and finish. We'll support also, like development of drug substance and the R&D. And we will support local manufacturers, but we are also interested in supporting regional champions, those who would like to work across the border as well, and even international companies. But this is really support going to the manufacturers themselves. We understand as the African Development Bank that we need to really enable the environment, issues of enabling the logistic integration, supporting intra-Africa trade, and building of the pharmaceutical hubs, for instance. This is very important. In addition, we all know that we need to harmonize our standards. We need to improve our standards, establishment of the AMA, supporting the NMRAs and else. So this is another area where we have already started working on. But of course, we all know that there is very little R&D already conducted in the continent when it comes to pharmaceutical R&D. And the bank really is interested into moving into this. Also, we welcome your ideas on this area because it's still new to us and we have not really explored how we can implement this yet, but we have got more than 150 million set aside for R&D basically. But also, like I mentioned, so vaccine really falls as one of our pillars in achieving our pharmaceutical vision. And this is the last pillar. Now, just so you know that the AfDB has looked at really the continental agenda, to support vaccines. And under PAVM, the discussions are running across these work streams. And the bank really also tried to look at where do we position ourselves, where can we lead, where do we have a competitive advantage, and where can we work with partners, basically. And here we found that maybe in the regulatory strengthening is an area where we could really support, because the bank really through its public sector window really is into supporting regulatory improvements, industrial policies, capacity building, technical assistance, and all of that. But also, of course, in terms of access to finance, as you know, we are co-leading in the PAVM with AfreximBank, the access to finance working stream. And of course, my colleague Fernando will talk a lot today about what the bank really offers in terms of our financing. In terms of the infrastructure, indeed, the bank is really called the Infrastructure Bank of Africa. So we have competitive advantage there, and we do very well when it comes to infrastructure, corridors, and the trade support. But specifically on the vaccine development pillar of the bank's pharmaceutical strategy, let us just focus on 2 or 3 main axes that most of the projects that are in our pipeline fall into. First of all, it's about supporting the development of manufacturing plants. This is you come with your projects, right? And we try to support you to really develop your projects, but we mainly really support you with long-term financing, right? Through direct lending. And at times we work with private equity funds to also on lend to the manufacturers. Here also this involves technical assistance, maybe going to local manufacturers as well. But indeed, we all know, and VP has alluded to this, that we are interested in supporting really the system in shaping a vehicle to pull the demand for the African countries. And we understand that, of course, there is a whole working group that is working now in PAVM to really work this out with Gavi. We would like your feedback on this, because we heard, and maybe Nazim will mention that we heard that some, perhaps report or so have come across. But the bank would really like to see where we can position ourselves here, because we would like to come on board and provide some form of, perhaps public sector guarantees in order to secure offtakes by the government from the manufacturers. So this is something that we have done in some other sectors, like the power sector, and they were very successful. But it will only happen after we understand what's happening, on the side of PAVM as well. But the last one is about really supporting policy, institutional, regulatory support. It's about advocacy and so on. And this is why we are here. Would like to hear from you, as VP mentioned, where you would like our interventions, especially on advocacy, especially on regulatory environment. Okay, like I mentioned, we look at things from really very structured way. We have set, we will have 2 particular flagship projects to really deliver our vaccine plans. And as I mentioned, mainly it's about financing manufacturers, but also the other ways about supporting the pool mechanism. I don't want to just go through that, but here we have, what type of support we will do, be it the lending, be it the technical assistance, and we know exactly, like the envelopes that we would like really to work with. And like we are meeting today, like our friends AfreximBank are coming today, we are working with, like partners. We have a collaboration agreement already with the Islamic Development Bank to come and joint venture and co-finance basically these together. So we also know with whom we will be working on these different, components basically. Yeah, so my colleague Fernando will talk a little bit about the financing tools and instruments. But like we said, let it just be a discussion. And yeah, so if you have any questions later on for me, please, you're welcome. Fernando.
Thank you very much, Ghada, and good afternoon, everyone. So as indicated, we have a large pool of instruments to support the pharma industry and the African vaccine manufacturing industry more precisely. We have several ways to do so. We can obviously support the public side of it through supporting government in terms of enabling environment and so on, but also supporting financing of the enabling infrastructures, and we will go through the instruments that we have at our disposal. We can support programs that will be in support of the development of vehicles to pull the demand for African countries that will ensure long-term vaccine offtake agreements. And we have several instruments that will cover this specific assistance. I will go through it. And on the other hand, we will be also supporting directly vaccine manufacturers. We have several ways to do it. We can support manufacturers that have established track record, established companies that are willing to, that have already existing capacities on the continent or elsewhere, but are need actually to upgrade, to increase their capacities. This is what we call, let's say, brownfield projects, and we will be supporting it through leveraging on the balance sheet of those manufacturers. So that's what we call corporate financing. And on the other end, we can finance new projects, so what we call greenfield projects, new manufacturing factories to be established in specific countries. And this will be done through assessment of the specificities of the project and the cash flows that will come out of this new production facilities. So I will go through the different instruments more in detail. So to begin with, just as a reminder, next slide, please. We will be providing debt financing mostly. So that's mostly how we will be supporting the vaccine manufacturing industry. And we have several instruments on the debt side to cover for those needs. Let's say that first of all, we are generally financing large-scale projects. So our ticket will be generally minimum around $10 million or their equivalent. Obviously, we have some flexibility on that front, particularly in the pharma industry. But it is just to give you an idea. And we will be supporting those large projects directly with debt. And where there are some, let's say, smaller projects, we will do it as well, and we will do it indirectly, and I will also cover this side. So first of all, where it pertains to the public window, we will be supporting all that is infrastructure projects, so large capital intensive infrastructure projects that will support the expansion of the pharma industry. So this will be supported through concessional lending, so debt with long-term maturities. It can go up to 30 to 40 years in emerging economies for large and risky projects. So that's long-term funding that will be providing for those large infrastructures. For some specific infrastructures in support of the pharma industry, such as the logistics, we will also have some specific loans that can cover and support those logistics facilities with tenures that can go up to 25 years. What is important to know is that we will be providing financing generally in our currency, being euro or US dollar, but we can also provide local currency funding in several countries. We will be, so those instruments are for long-term maturities, as I said again, and those instruments will need to be backed by a strong government support, and in both cases, we will generally require the sovereign guarantee. On the other end, we will be also supporting private sector and manufacturers. So in this specific case, we will be supporting the manufacturers with long-term debt funding as well, but with maturities that can go up to 15 years in general. The average is generally between 10 to 12 years in the pharma industry, but we can go up to 15. We will be providing flexibility in terms of the grace periods. So this is generally to provide the needed comfort during the construction phase and the ramp-up period. So our grace periods will be generally between 2 to 3 years, but we can go up to 5 years in the pharma industry. Here again, we understand the need for the construction, but also a ramp-up period, certifications to be obtained, and so on. So we will be providing this flexibility, and it is important to note that for those support, we will be providing this debt without any specific sovereign guarantee. So it will be really based on the project merits and on the basis of the capacities of the borrower and the sponsors. So this is for large projects, and we will be also able, on top of the debt, we can also provide for some equity funding. So we can come as an investor and provide some equity to boost and catalyze financing. We will be doing it for large projects. Generally, the idea is not to take control position on those transactions or on those companies. It's just to have a minority stake, so that will not exceed generally 25% of the total equity of a specific company, with generally a ticket that will be around $10 million US. On top of the equity or the direct equity, we can provide some subordinated debt. So it's, let's say, between the debt that I already commented, which is generally what we call senior debt, and the equity. So it's quasi-equity, means that we will be generally providing a debt that will be repaid after the traditional commercial bank. So with longer tenures, and most of the case, we will provide a very long grace period, or even what we call bullet loans, where you will not be paying for or repaying any principal on the debt. The company will be only repaying interest during, let's say, 5 years, and at the end of the 5th year, they will be repaying in full, or going to refinance this specific debt once it has reached a level where the company is profitable and can raise money in the traditional commercial banking. Because it is important to note that we are generally coming to be additional to what is existing in the market. So we are not trying to come in competition with local commercial banks, but rather as an additional or a complementary form of funding that what is provided by commercial banks. If we look at so the size, as I said, generally large-scale projects, but we can also support smaller scale projects, and this will be done generally indirectly. So we have two forms of doing it, either through providing lines of credit to local commercial banks that know very well the market and will be able to deploy the funds that will be provided by the AfDB. So we will be providing a line of credit, and those commercial banks will then be financing small scale projects, distributors, manufacturers, and so on. And we can do it also indirectly through private equity funds. So generally, at least the bank is one of the biggest fund of funds on the continent. So we are generally investing in well-established fund managers that know very well the continent, the countries, the specificities, the pharma industry, and we will be providing, we will be investing on those private equity funds that will in turn invest in pharma projects and provide some support in terms of helping sponsors to develop the industry, develop their capacities, or expanding outside of their own market. So those are the typical, let's say, debt and equity instruments that we have. And on top of that, we have also some further instruments that are more risk participation agreement, trade finance line of credits. Here again, it is indirect support through local commercial banks. So we will be providing risk participation agreements to the local commercial banks, and we will be de-risking basically a specific project. We can provide credit risk sharing with up to 50% of the transaction value, with maximum tenors that will be generally between around 3.5 years. And this will be also the same for trade finance lines of credit. So those trade finance lines of credit are mostly to finance the imports or exports. So it's pre-financing of exports that we will be financing through those instruments. Those are financial instruments, and we can also provide some grants, so what we call non-financial instruments. So it will be technical assistance at the level of governments. It can be, as I said initially, to support working on enabling environment. It can be to work on regulatory frameworks to help and support the development of the pharma industry. And we can provide technical support also directly to manufacturers, to project owners, to help build capacity, to help prepare projects and make them bankable. It can be either through preparing the project in terms of the feasibility studies, in terms of assessing a specific market that will pave the way for the project being bankable and being able to go to source funding on the markets. Next slide, please. So here we have, let's say, another way to support projects. So it's through our guarantee instruments. So we have two specific guarantee instruments to provide support to manufacturing, to the pharma manufacturing industry. We have a guarantee that is called the partial risk guarantee. So this is more a guarantee that will be provided to support political risk, to prevent against political risk, to cover currency inconvertibility, nationalization, or force majeure risk. So this is available to commercial and private sector financiers. That's the same with our partial credit guarantee, which works slightly differently, because in the case of the partial credit guarantee, we will be providing a full-fledged guarantee or coverage over the risk of the project. So it will be first demand guarantee, where we will cover basically for the default risk of a borrower or of the project. So this is another instrument, and this will be particularly useful when local commercial banks have an appetite to fund a project, have the liquidity to fund a project, but are not maybe always keen to take a risk in terms of long tenor, long maturity. So this partial credit guarantee will enable them to come and provide the support. The trust funds, I already mentioned it, so it's a way to support either the governments or the project owners. And finally, we have also some instruments related to risk management in terms of the financial instruments. So it will be basically instruments that will cover hedging risk. So basically on interest rate movements, on local currency movements. So it's kind of instruments that will cover and hedge for such risks. So we have a very wide range of instruments, and I will be happy to answer any question together with my colleague Richard. And I think I will now give the floor to my colleague Zitto from AfreximBank. Thank you.
Hello, Zitto. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Ghada. Thank you, everyone, for making time for this presentation. So we can go to the next slide. Okay. So first and foremost, before I delve into the presentation, I just wanted to give a background as to what motivated AfreximBank's intervention in the healthcare sector, because traditionally, AfreximBank has been renowned for being a multilateral trade finance institution. So when people get to understand or know that AfreximBank supports the healthcare sector, they're taken aback. This particular intervention began in 2014 when AfreximBank commissioned a study to understand some of the challenges in the healthcare sector. And this was emanated from the fact that in our analysis, we realized that way back in 2015 that about 650,000 people across the continent used to travel to Europe and Asia to seek better healthcare facilities. What that meant was, first and foremost, the medical treatment bill was about $2.2 billion per annum. And associated with that was about $1.6 billion that was spent on travel and accommodation, because you know the fact that when some of these patients went to seek support elsewhere, they needed to have someone to accompany them. What that meant was that there was a depletion of forex reserves. Now, when we studied that, we realized that definitely there's an opportunity for AfreximBank to intervene in this particular sector and come up with solutions that could demonstrate that the healthcare sector can be bankable. Now, that led us to the Impact 2021 strategy. And this was our first strategy that ran from 2016 to 2021. And under this particular strategy, we quickly realized that one of the key challenges we faced was that there were very few developers with the appetite to implement healthcare projects. And this was born out of the fact that not too many people understood the healthcare business model and how it operates. So what we did at AfreximBank was to take the bull by the horns and actually develop our very own healthcare facility. So that image you see there on the right, that is the African Medical Center of Excellence. This is a building that AfreximBank has taken the initiative to develop this quaternary level hospital. This hospital is located in Abuja. As we speak, the hospital is currently on the 7th floor, and we expect to commission it sometime early next year. This hospital is a collaboration between AfreximBank and King's College of London. What we try to achieve with this particular intervention is to raise awareness and to signal to the market that the healthcare sector can be de-risked and it can be bankable and it can be a profitable business. I'm happy to report that this project has been funded by various partners that have come on board and is progressing well. Associated with that is the fact that we also came up with a solution, our construction medical relay facility, whereby besides financing our own portfolio of projects, we can also support the development and implementation of third-party projects that come in for our assessment. Okay, maybe we can go to the next slide, please. And it's from that realization that we came up with our intervention on the vaccine and pharmaceutical sectors. Now, you will note that when we were assessing the development of this hospital, we realized that there are significant value chains that needed to be taken care of in order to ensure that the hospital that we're developing is bankable. One of the key things that we noted was that the vaccine manufacturing sector has a limited capacity on the continent. The same thing occurs with regards to the pharmaceutical sector. So we came up with two key objectives that we set to achieve through this particular intervention. And one thing that I would like to highlight was these objectives were set pre-COVID. So this was 2016, 2017, even before the advent of COVID. And the objectives that we set out for ourselves are, first and foremost, we wanted to come up with an integrated and resilient, to set up resilient healthcare systems that will boost healthcare security across the continent. We also wanted to ensure that in doing so, given the significant gaps, AfreximBank on its own does not have the capacity to bridge some of these gaps. So we reached out to like-minded partners such as the African Development Bank, BADEA, AFC, so that we can pool resources and bridge some of these gaps. We do note that some of these gaps are not necessarily financial, but there are also non-financial factors that need to be taken on board. Hence, there's also a facilitation role that we play in advocacy when we engage with our member countries. Now, these are the solutions that we have across the vaccine and pharma value chain. And I'd like to spend a minute or two on this particular slide. So we'll move from left to right. So first and foremost, we start off with the project concept. So typically, the person that comes up with the project is the project sponsor himself. So they typically come up with the idea of what it is that they want to do. At this particular point, they define it and they set out the ambition on what it is they want to achieve. At this particular juncture of the project, AfreximBank has a private equity fund. It's called the Fund for Export Development in Africa. This fund is based in Rwanda. Project developers with interesting projects that are of interest can tap into this facility. Typically, what the fund expects is that it will take up a minority stake of up to 20% per project. And what it does is you also benefit from having AfreximBank's convening power, AfreximBank's relationships that we can bring into play so that we can de-risk these projects and implement them in a timely manner. The next step in the project, the next step in the vaccine and pharma value chain is the project feasibility stage. So we at AfreximBank have a project preparation facility. And with this project preparation facility, what we tend to do is we avail patient capital so that we can de-risk projects. Essentially, what we do is we finance the preparation of bankability and feasibility study, the engagement of transaction advisors, they could be legal or technical or financial, and we also support last mile activities. We're also cognizant of the fact that for you to de-risk these projects and to make them bankable at this feasibility stage, you may need some advisory and capital market support. So AfreximBank, again, can tap its advisory team to structure the project to ensure that it's in a shape and form that when presented to the market, we can get to bankability in a timely manner. When it comes to the implementation phase, we've got three primary modes of intervention. So first and foremost is your senior debt. And essentially, this is a medium to long-term facility that we can avail of anything from 4 years to up to 12 years. This facility can be used to finance CapEx-related items. It can also be used to finance ECA solutions. It can be used to deploy to finance ECA solutions. We also have a risk-bearing instruments, and so I'm happy to report that we've got a full-fledged program. It's called the AfreximBank Guarantee Program. Under this particular program, the solutions can be tapped into right from short-term supply chain guarantees, bid bonds that might be required, all the way to investment guarantees and partial risk guarantees, similar to what our colleagues at African Development Bank do. Then last but not least, given the scale of the project, there may be an opportunity for some syndication or need for syndications. Again, we've got a fully fledged syndications team Again, I'm happy to report that we've got the #1 syndication team for the last 3 years on the continent that has the capacity to bring together and assemble a formidable team of financiers that can bring this project to the market in a timely manner. Last but not least is the project operation. And here, this is our typical bread and butter business at AfreximBank. We have trade finance solutions that cut across working capital, factoring, SME financing, and any other short-term solutions that may be required to ensure the optimal operating of the particular plant. These are some of the initiatives that we are also propagating and advancing as AfreximBank. So first and foremost is the Africa Medical Supplies Platform. Again, in sync with our objectives whereby we work with partners, this platform was established by AfreximBank, UNECA, the Africa CDC. And essentially, this platform was born during the COVID-19 pandemic. What we realized during that period was that first and foremost, the African markets were fragmented. There was a need to consolidate supply so that our member countries could purchase vaccines at competitive rates. And over and above that, we also had to make sure that when these vaccines were purchased, there was a need for them to be distributed to the member countries. The second thing that we noted was that the medical supplies market on the continent is not very transparent. So we came up with this platform so that anyone who presents their goods and services onto the continent can do so in a transparent manner so that we can ensure that the goods and services are delivered and there's value for money. Last but not least is the awareness of the fact that there is a need to ensure that there's quality assurance and that counterfeit products do not get into the market. So again, through this Africa Medical Supplies Platform, this is an initiative that can assist in that regard to ensure that only genuinely manufactured products can be produced and sold across the continent. The other initiative that we developed during the COVID period was AVAT. Again, this is a collaboration between UNECA, AfreximBank, the World Bank, Africa CDC, and UNICEF. And as you're all aware, through this particular initiative, AfreximBank was able to procure 400 million doses of Johnson & Johnson vaccine, through which we're able to cover 30% of Africa's population during that particular time when getting access to quality vaccines was a bit of a challenge. What have we done to date? And this is where the rubber meets the road. In the last 2 weeks, AfreximBank has already signed 2 key interventions in the vaccine manufacturing sector. So first and foremost, at the sidelines of the Intra-African Trade Fair that was held in Cairo 2 weeks ago, we were able to sign a integrated vaccine manufacturing plant in Nigeria. The project cost is about $100 million. When this project is fully commissioned, it should be able to produce about $200 million of vaccines. What was exciting about this particular project is the fact that this particular project does not use fill and finish, but it actually starts from drug substance or API. And these are the kind of solutions that we at AfreximBank are trying to support. The other project that we also have an approval for and are now in the process of preparation is a project in South Africa. This entails the development of a routine veterinary vaccine manufacturing plant in South Africa. This particular project is interesting due to the fact that it integrates the One Health concept. What this means is that we're trying to ensure that the livelihood of people, animals, and environment is interrelated and health stable. This is a first-of-a-kind project that we're seeing on the continent, and we're of the view that this can be replicated and scaled up. So that, in a nutshell, is the value proposition from AfreximBank. I will be sharing with Ghada and the team detailed brochures of the various products and services that we offer, and I look forward to an impactful and engaging conversation with the participants of this call. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Zitto, and thanks, Fernando. So now we hand the floor to Patrick. Melissa, would you like to project from your end, or would you like me to continue projection?
I'll project from my end. Thank you, Ghada.
Okay, so let me stop sharing then.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ghada and the team from the African Development Bank and Afrexim. it is a lot of interesting and potentially very encouraging information to digest. And so I guess this conversation would have to be extended, but it's an excellent start. Thank you so much. We're going to now reflect on a couple of perspectives from three African vaccine manufacturers. Craig Mitchell will be presenting on behalf of Biovac. Abderrahmane Maaroufi will be presenting on behalf of the Institute Pasteur Morocco. And Michael Lusiola will be presenting on behalf of Biovax Kenya. Now, we have a hard stop at 5 p.m. South African time, which is in about 55 minutes. So let me just provide some overview of AVMI and set the scene, and then I'm going to hand over to Craig to briefly take us through the Biovac overview and share some perspectives. Next slide, please, Melissa. So about AVMI, we were established, we started in 2010, formally established in 2012 as a not-for-profit organization. We're registered in South Africa and we're a legal entity in South Africa. We have a very simple yet difficult mission to advance the establishment of sustainable human vaccine manufacturing capacity in Africa. And like we like to say, is this was a front and center on our radar screen before vaccines became the flavor of the month because of COVID-19. Next. We did a piece of work supported by WHO and UNIDO way back in 2015, which we call the Vaccine Manufacturing and Procurement in Africa study, the VMPA study. And unsurprisingly, it produced a number of conclusions, amongst which I've listed a few. Multiple major players can be accommodated. The concept of hubs was proposed, but the essential bit of requiring the correct political and technical support was underlined. And it became absolutely obvious that without a long-term vision that becomes a collective compelling vision on the continent, it would be extremely difficult to advance this cause. But as we know, COVID-19 gave rise to the PAVM under the leadership of the African CDC, and that generated this long-term compelling vision. Next. Oh. Then this is the wrong one here, Melissa. Something's gone wrong. Okay, go next slide. Next. Oh, okay. My presentation has been aborted somewhat. Sorry about that. But let me just cover some important points that my slides should have included. And apologies for the confusion and the error. I think the first point that I want to make is that AVMI works intimately with the Partnership for African Vaccine Manufacturing. We have worked on several of the BOLD program work streams, and we have been charged with the responsibility for leading the technology transfer and IP enablement unit. So this is a synergistic relationship between AVMI and the PAVM. We contend that the pivotal issue to solve is the market issue and the market demand certainty issue, which I think has become a focal point for the African Development Bank as well, and there's clear recognition of that by multiple stakeholders. A couple of other thoughts to appreciate is that there needs to be a focus on. Thank you very much. Next one. Next slide. Yeah. So there needs to be a focus on several different aspects. I've spoken about the markets. We can go back forward, Melissa. I've spoken about the markets, and partnerships are important. I think that it's important to appreciate that we want to build end-to-end manufacturing. We want to have a focus on vaccine R&D. There needs to be a focus on building regulatory capacity that is enabling and can expedite regulatory processes and time to market. And those are some of the key levers that we have at our disposal. I think there's been several pivotal interventions or developments over recent times. One was the meeting that we referred to earlier in Addis, where we had convened on prioritizing enabling policies, mobilizing finances, expediting regulatory processes, and the ability to secure demand certainty. So that was the one piece. The second development, which is pivotal, is in progress at the moment, and that is the African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator, which, as we all know, is driven by Gavi, and that has the potential to be quite a catalytic game changer in terms of incentivizing further investments into vaccine manufacturing capability building on the continent. The third component, or the third development, is the Moroccan meeting, which the African CDC convened, which focused on the market, and also brought into conversation the African governments, and that was the first in a series of meetings that will drive this point home. That highlighted the work that the African CDC is doing with respect to a pool procurement mechanism, and that is being looked at now and driven forward, and it's mainly targeted at the African governments to align and work together to produce this market demand certainty. So these are pivotal developments. The next one is one up for I've structured it very, very provocatively, and that is, could the next pivotal development be what the African banks' advancement in terms of their strategy and vision, their enabling mechanisms and programs in terms of getting the manufacturers financed appropriately to really deliver the capability in terms of workforce development, in terms of infrastructure build, in terms of providing finance to access technology, and eventually end up in a state of readiness. So with that framing, I apologize for the mess up I've made with respect to the slides, but let me invite Craig to share some thoughts from the Biovac perspective. Craig is the Chief Financial Officer at Biovac. Over to you, Craig.
Thanks, Patrick, and good afternoon, colleagues. Thanks for having me. It's a great honor to share our experiences. For those of you who don't know, Biovac is an established manufacturer on the continent. We are, and just to flip through to the next slide, Melissa, we are roughly 20 years old now. What we see here on this first slide is a picture of, on this one is how Biovac's developed over the years, but the end state is still quite a modest facility in terms of scale, and with that, in terms of being able to supply low-cost vaccines. Next slide, Melissa. I'm just putting these slides to frame. I won't pause too long on them. But I just put this one to also show that over these 2 decades, we've built quite a lot of capability and we feel we are at the cusp of being able to scale this up to what is necessary for the continent, and also the scale up that we're doing would probably cater for 5 out of that 60% that the continent is targeting to manufacture by 2040. So even though it's big scale for us, I think there's still a long way to go in terms of other manufacturers coming to the party. Next slide, Melissa. And just a brief introduction, because I think building on partnerships is very important, but also the route that we've taken. Now, this slide, you'll see the arrows go from right to left instead of from left to right. And I'll position that as one of the challenges, which I'll dive into on the next slide, realizing that these limited time. So the first challenge I'd like to package as product ownership. With the nascentness of the industry in Africa, the ecosystem for development of vaccines, whilst it is then in pockets, is not developed enough for, and the surrounding support is not developed enough for manufacturers or developers to take products from the lab and take it to commercial scale while owning the IP. And so what Biovac's done is that we've moved from the other direction, and I think this is not a particularly bad strategy, although I might be biased, but it allows going from the other direction and striking up partnerships with significant players in the industry does allow you to absorb and learn and build on a capability that you will need at such point when you're developing your own product and taking it through the value chain in the other direction. I think one of the other challenges is the market. If I can bucket a few of my points under that. I think the colleagues on the call have spoken a lot about efforts that are ongoing to alleviate this challenge that we're experiencing. One example is short tender terms. To build a vaccine facility, to commission it, and to absorb a tech transfer, just one tech transfer into that facility, I think we've mapped it out as roughly 5.5 years as a realistic timeline. And you're looking at tender terms that run typically in 3-year, maybe 5-year cycles. And if you look at the disparity between that, with no guarantee of actually being awarded a tender, it does present a challenge in raising financing or in developing a bankable case to present to funders. The other thing around the market is the price pressure on vaccines. Now, we know this is a public health good. The region does need vaccines to be supplied at scale, and so there is huge price pressure. And even when you are working with partners, in order to meet the end price requirement of the customer, you need to be quite lean, and to do that without scale is a challenge in its own right. And so looking at those two short tender periods with price pressure, realizing that localization, especially on the startup phase, does cost money. Others, Biovac, I've mentioned in the beginning, is 20 years old. I think other companies that have achieved these scales, I could say even orders of magnitude to our age, so it does take a really long time to bed this down and to become really efficient at it, and to be able to reach the cost levels that are required by the market. It's a capital intensive process. As I said, it takes about 5.5 years before you're starting to earn revenue, and that's if everything goes well. So yes, this can be accelerated if you do certain things at risk, but with other pressures, it's really difficult to be able to put money up at risk to accelerate the process. So that capital intensive period it carries high fixed costs because there's a scarcity of skills which also comes at a premium, and you have to carry these costs throughout that build period because you can't build the facility and magically have staff that's ready to manufacture at the end of the 5.5-year period. You have to build this up gradually in the beginning and ramp it up pretty soon after the facility is built, and carry the cost of these skill sets in order to reach the state of regulatory approval and to enter the market with good quality vaccines. So I think there's what I've seen at Biovac is there's an intense focus on quality and making sure, and you can see that by the partnerships that we've struck, multinational companies, and there's good scrutiny over the quality as well. So when we're talking about reducing costs and being efficient, it certainly doesn't come at the cost of quality, which does also add to the burden in terms of having that scale to keep that cost at a competitive level. So I think the points mentioned above all ultimately roll up into being able to put together a bankable case in front of a funder that is easy to support. Now, there's various amounts of risk, and AfDB, Afrexim have presented different instruments that are available, which accept different levels of risk. And yeah, the slides will be shared afterwards because I'd like to read into some of them a bit deeper. But I think what was said in the beginning of the call is that, you know, we need to look wide and be innovative about how we fund these things, because it's, whilst Biovac is established, we have a clear plan, we have willing partners. The market conditions, I think, have shaped up nicely over this last, you can call it 6 to 8 months. Prior to that, we were feeling like we're on a rocking chair, trying to build a facility. So hopefully it's all culminating now to a state where we can access financing. But these are some of the challenges in creating a case that does allow for a funder to invest, whether it be through debt, equity, or other instruments that were put on the table. Thank you, Patrick, and thanks once again to the colleagues on the call for giving me the opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Craig, and thanks for sticking to time as well. We will circle back to have a further conversation about this. But let me move on to Professor Maaroufi from the Institute Pasteur in Morocco. Prof. Maaroufi, over to you.
Thank you very much, Patrick, really for this opportunity that you give us and colleagues from AVMI to share with colleagues what is the state of advance of our project that we are conducting in Morocco, which is a project of public-private partnership for developing local manufacturing of vaccines and biological products. So I apologize, my slides, it's in French, but I will speak in English. So please, if you don't understand anything, don't hesitate to ask me. So the first point, or my presentation will be articulated in 3 topics. The first, what is Institut Pasteur of Morocco, what is that? And the second topic is our project, what are the key players and what is the role of each player in this project. And the last part is regarding what are the challenges that we are facing in our country to implement this very important project. So first, Institut Pasteur of Morocco is a governmental institution He have two big missions. The first mission is a public health institute, which support public health programs in implementing the activities in the health system. It's combating communicable and non-communicable disease. The second big mission that we are conducting is a pharmaceutical mission in terms of importation, production, and distribution of vaccines and biological products that are priority and pertinent for our health policy and public health programs in Morocco. So the project that we can move, Mr. Patrick, please, the next slide. The project that we are conducting is the implementation of the vision of our king, which he launched in 2021 during the COVID-19. It's this vision, the objective is to develop national sovereignty of Morocco in terms of manufacturing and distribution of vaccines and biological products. So until really to 2022, we import all our needs of vaccines from outside, from other countries and other companies and partners. So this is why we are really, our system is very vulnerable in terms of availability of vaccines and products, biological products. So our king vision is articulated in three phases. The first phase, it was done in 2021 and 2022, is regarding developing capacity for local manufacturing of vaccines against COVID. So we did it in 2021 and 2022 through partnership with Sinopharm companies from China. We already did a tech transfer and manufactured 3,300,000 doses of vaccines anti-COVID from Sinopharm. The second phase is regarding the development of local capacities for fill and finish activities of all vaccines that we need in our health system. So the vision here is to do this work through public-private partnership. So if you permit, I will explain to you. Next step, please. Please, Patrick. Yeah, next, please. Yes. This slide shows what are the key players in this system and what is the role of each key player in implementing this vision. So the first one in the right here, the public sector, which is Institut Pasteur of Morocco, governmental institution, its role is to hold the marketing authorization. So all vaccines that will be manufactured and biological products also locally manufactured, the authorization for marketing will be held by the state, by the governmental institution. Also, the license for manufacturing is also procured and acquired by our institutes through the support from our government. So when we acquire these statutes of products, we then sign contracts. We sign public-private contracts and agreements with Marbio. Marbio is a big manufacturing unit that was established in Morocco. It is near Casablanca, near Institut Pasteur, just 45 kilometers. And Marbio, with the capacity of manufacturing more than 140 million doses per year, will play the role of SEMO, Contract Manufacturing Organization. So we signed contracts with them in order to start manufacturing and fill and finish of the products that we define. So the antigen specifically that identified, it's done by government, by Institut Pasteur, and Marbio will subcontract the activities of fill and finish. So we have also the third actor play actor, which is in green, the manufacturer and the holder of license. So we negotiate with a lot of partners. We start, I will show now, we already acquire a license for 5 vaccines, but we still continue to negotiate and to discuss with partners. So when we identify the manufacturer and license holder, we sign contract in terms of tech transfer, technology transfer for manufacturing and for QC, quality control. So this tech transfer will be done towards CMO, our Marbio, our CMO, but also towards Institut Pasteur of Morocco, particularly for analytical quality transfer methods, because our responsibility also is to control the quality of finished product that were developed by CMO, and before release of this product, we have to control the quality. This is important also. The tech transfer of know-how and competencies is beneficial also to our national authority, regulatory authority for pharmaceutical, which is belong to the Ministry of Health, which is also very important. So now we, when the fill and finish activities finish, we will receive and Marbio will deliver to us the finished product, and the role of Institut Pasteur is to distribute the products for national markets, public and private, mainly public, because public in our city, like in our country, like a lot of countries, 95% of markets of vaccine in Morocco is held by public, which is Ministry of Health. So we distribute the finished product to Ministry of Health, but also to private sector, because we are the holder of marketing authorization. So we have also the objective. This is what the meeting, I think that Patrick talked about the meeting that we organized in Marrakesh, Morocco in September 2023. We also have the ambition and the objective to distribute also this product for Africa continent, to contribute to the sovereignty of our continent through different mechanisms like Gavi, like pooled procurement market and mechanism that Patrick talked about, and also directly to state through diplomatic channel and through relationship with also some countries, French countries in Africa. So this is really the model of the role of different stakeholders and main stakeholders that are involved in this project. So please, the next, Mr. Patrick. So now what are the state of advance in implementing of this project? Please, the next. So here are the portfolio of the vaccines that are really eligible and are planned to be manufactured locally in Morocco. So all these vaccines are used by Ministry of Health through national program of immunization, but also they are used also in private sector, and we really manufacture, or the needs of the use of these vaccines. It's almost the quantity of 22 million doses per year, which is an estimation. So all these products will be eligible and targeted in this project. We start to regulatory registration of this. Please, the next, Patrick. We start registration. We have 6 vaccines that are registration and the license acquired, and we start tech transfer, or the first vaccine, which is PCV13. So now we already done 80% of the work in terms of tech transfer to Institut Pasteur and to Marbio also as CMO. Next, please. So what are the main challenges that we are facing in this project? First, our ambition also, and this is also one phase of our program and state program for sovereignty of vaccines, is to develop a platform and incubator for R&D, for research development of vaccines and biodiagnostic. The second also, we wish that we collect, we gather, we federate all capacities in Morocco that are interested in developing R&D in vaccines and biotechnological. It could be academia, public academia, or private also research center. But this consortium, our vision and our ambition is to be organized with Institut Pasteur and with public and governmental institutions. The third challenge is the tech transfer of know-how for R&D and manufacturing. So this is a big challenge also that we are facing. And the final challenge is a talent development. It is one really big needs that we work on, is to have support for development of our human resources capacities and competencies, both in terms of R&D and in terms of manufacturing of vaccines and biotechnological products. So next, please, Mr. Patrick, I would like just to thank you, my colleagues and friends, for your listening. Next, Patrick. Patrick.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Abderrahmane, for that overview and then highlighting the challenges. I'm going to not waste any time now and move on to Michael from Biovax. Michael Lusiola. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Patrick, and thank you everybody for this opportunity to share with you what we are doing here at the Kenya Biovax Institute. And just by way of introduction, the Kenya Biovax Institute is a state corporation owned 100% by the government of Kenya. It's been recently established to lead the manufacturing and the commercialization of human vaccines, and going forward to also look into other biotherapeutic products like diagnostics and biologics. So in the next slide, again, as I started, the vision of the Institute is really to develop into a regional center of excellence when it comes to manufacturing of human vaccines, and also to ensure that these vaccines, these specialized health products and technologies are of the highest quality, they're available, they're safe, they're effective, and importantly, that they're available to help the country, the region, be able to combat the vaccine-preventable diseases. Our mission really is to transition the country and to transition the region from health commodity dependency, something which we learned has dire consequences based on the lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic. So we really want to transition from that dependency to a state where we will be self-sufficient and assured in terms of health commodity supply security. Not just in the country, but in the region. And in order for us to accomplish that mission, we have to build that internal capacity in biomanufacturing. So just a quick update of where we are here at Biovax. And just before I mention this, I must say thank you very much to Biovac of South Africa, who are actually, I must say, are like our big brothers, because we look up to what Biovac are doing, and we're trying to see how best we can catch up with that level of quality in terms of technology and deliverable. So as I said earlier, we've just been recently established. We have physical facilities that we are making ready for receiving of the machinery and the equipment, just to make sure that we have the physical infrastructure to be able to commence with the downstream activities of manufacturing, especially around the packaging and labeling as a first step, and then moving upstream to formulation, fill, and finish. So we want to start with the downstream activities, and that's why we are making the facility ready for those activities. So we have, at the moment, we have about 10,000 square meters of physical space that we are repurposing for this particular facility. We are just going through the process of procuring the machinery and the equipment, and also building the quality management systems, the processes, and also the technology transfer collaborations. In terms of materials and the inputs, as you know, vaccines manufacturing requires quite a lot of specialized inputs. So we're talking with other big vaccines manufacturers, manufacturing companies, to ensure we have drug substance, we have drug product, we have all the raw materials required. And then we're building these strategic partnerships so that they can enable technology transfer, enable knowledge transfer, and all these important parts of the process. In terms of operations and maintenance, yes, we're building the human resource capacity, we're recruiting, we're building the workforce in terms of upskilling, in terms of biomanufacturing, hands-on training, and various other activities to make sure that we are able to operate these machines. And then importantly, we are an active participant in the market shaping activities in the region, in the continent. We are key partners with the PAVM and also with the AVMI, hence the reason why we're on this call. We believe that we have to be strategic in how we get into vaccines manufacturing, so that we avoid, we're able to capture the market in a clever way and avoid duplication, be able to feed the demand in the marketplace in a very strategic way. And just a little pitch for Kenya here. So you probably all know that Kenya, we have a very robust and healthy enabling environment to run and conduct businesses. We have a skilled workforce. We've got the capability to conduct clinical trials, clinical studies for phase 1, phase 2, safety tolerability studies for all these important pharmaceutical products. We even have facilities that conduct preclinical studies. So we have expertise in country to do toxicology studies, to do safety pharmacology, all the way from preclinical all the way to the clinic. We are very closely linked with the Kenya Medical Research Institute. We're also very closely linked with the Institute of Climate Research that conducts the animal-related studies. And of course, Kenya is a strategic regional hub for commercial initiatives, for health security initiatives. We're well positioned to support the region. When you look at the market demand for vaccines within the East African community, we're looking at a market size of close to 150 million doses per year for the essential routine immunization vaccines for our children, adolescent girls, and the pregnant mothers. And of course, we have a rising birth rate. So this translates to an increasing demand year on year. So in terms of the demand for the product, the demand for the vaccines, rest assured that this is there to stay. The next slide. So this is where we want to be as Kenya Biovax. This is just a visualization image. We want to build a world-class state-of-the-art facility to become a regional center in biotechnology. We want to build capacity to ramp up production to up to 100 million doses of vaccines per year to cover both the routine and the outbreak vaccines. And we believe by doing this, we'll be able to support not just the country, not just the region, but the continent should we be faced by the next pandemic. The next slide. As you all know, Kenya will be graduating from the co-financing support by Gavi UNICEF. So at the moment, we are consuming about 30 million doses of the routine vaccines per year. So come 2026, 2027, we as a country need to be able to have devised a way to replace that gap that will be left when Gavi exits. So this is quite a challenge for us, hence the justification behind the setting up of the Kenya Biovax Institute. And of course, in terms of pandemic preparedness, Kenya Biovax is a key player when it comes to pandemic preparedness for the country, for the region. Today, we are not yet there, but we believe that this is an effort that will take us towards pandemic preparedness. It's an effort that will take us towards building the health system resilience so that we are better placed to face the next outbreak, the next epidemic, the next pandemic. Next slide. So here is where the focus of today's conversation really is. And I'm really glad that that the banks, Africa Development Bank, AfreximBank, have given us the opportunity to present this. So when we started at Biovax, we had a huge challenge when it as regards to financials. We all know that setting up a sterile manufacturing facility for specialized pharmaceuticals is a highly cost-intensive endeavor. And so when we, as a project, presented this to the funding authorities, we got a bit of a pushback. And so we had to be creative and innovative to go out and look for funding to be able to support the project. We are not yet fully there, but we believe that we've been able to connect with some development partners who are very interested in what we're doing. But that does not mean that we cannot speak with other interested partners. We're very interested to develop these conversations with the Africa Development Bank, with the AfreximBank, to see how we can potentially work towards a win-win scenario. But funding, financials has been a key challenge to get us to where we want to be. Two other things. One is the technical competence, and this is to do with the workforce. It's to do with the processes involved in the manufacture. It's to do with the complexity around the products, the drug substance, the intellectual property, and of course the machines and the equipment and the lab infrastructure. These are technically very complicated things to deal with. And so to develop this skill, the workforce requires investment. So support for that kind of activity is one of the areas that we as Biovax are really going out to look for that support. We also have a challenge with regards to the regulatory environment. So we know that in vaccines manufacturing, you have to have a certain level of competency within the national regulatory authority. For example, to be able to make the appropriate assessments, make the appropriate good manufacturing practice assessments, batch release, quality assurance, quality control. So at the moment we are spending, as a country, we're spending quite a bit of time and effort and money to upskill our local national regulatory authorities so that they're able to attain the level of maturity required to complement the vaccines manufacturing initiative. So again, this is a challenge, but we're putting all the stops to make sure that we're able to achieve or fulfill these requirements. And of course, we have a few risks that we have to plan around and mitigate against. I think time delays is common. You start a project, they say it's gonna take 3-4 years. It takes 7 years. So if you look at technology transfer, even though the experience has shown that it's come down from a typical 6-year period to now 2 years. There's still no certainty when it comes to what's required, but also in terms of construction, the putting together the physical infrastructure. At the moment, in terms of project management, a lot of things around lead times are affecting how we're progressing, but we're trying to see how best we can plan around these uncertainties as we go forward. It was mentioned earlier about the market for the products, and the market purchase guarantees are critical to assure offtake for us. So within country, we're working closely with the ministry to get these advanced purchase guarantees already signed on the dotted line. So we're making good progress in that regard. But also we are connected to the pooled procurement mechanisms being set up for Africa as a continent.
Michael, sorry to interrupt. We've got 11 minutes left for the session. Could I ask you to funnel in and conclude in the next minute, please? I'm sorry to do this.
Thank you, Patrick. And I think, if you go to the next slide, maybe that can take us quickly towards the end. Just to highlight here that in terms of product portfolio, we want to focus first of all on the childhood immunization vaccines. And then going forward, we'll build the product portfolio to other products. And then in the next slide is just to, the next one again, I think we can skip this. This is important in terms of partnerships. We believe that we can only get to the next level if we partner with like-minded institutions, like-minded financial institutions, non-financial institutions. And we believe that definitely a relationship with the banks can take us a long way in achieving this objective. I think this is my last slide, Patrick. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Michael, thanks so much, and thanks. Apologies for rushing you on. We've got 9 minutes left in the session. It's a pity because I think we've been exposed to really great information, but we'll have to leverage this as a first base in terms of this discussion. But let me just see if there are any questions or comments from the floor. I don't see any hands raised yet. If you have a question or a comment, in the meantime, while you decide, Janine, over to you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to everyone. And congratulations to the presenters, in particular as well to the World Bank, the Africa Development Bank for organizing this very important webinar, or if I would call it as a dialogue. I'm Janine Wimananiko from Stellenbosch University, but as well with the University of Rwanda, the School of Public Health. So just a quick question here first will be to find out whether there will be a follow-up meeting to be more inclusive so that we have other key important stakeholders in this discussion, because I think, academic research and academic and research institutions, I've seen, yes, some like the Institute Pasteur, are involved, but I think Africa is quite large. And even here in South Africa, I'm sure, at another part, we do have other institutions that are actually having a research agenda in this particular field. On the other side as well, we've got as well the private sector or private sector federations of Africa, where we, such agenda will require a strong public-private partnership to make sure that all of us together, we're building this, work where I think all of us, it's not only a need, but I think there's also a pride as African to be able to produce our own product on the African soil. So that will be just one of the questions, just to find out if there's any plan to be able to expand or open the doors more to be more inclusive and with other stakeholders and the community, community people themselves as well. They need to be involved in a sense, research, clinical trials pertaining to vaccine production, manufacturing. We're still going to need to have some people, level of community involvement in this, even as well business people, to be able to push this agenda. The second one is just kind of an observation, trying to find out if there are some research or studies that have been conducted. I heard that AfreximBank has conducted some in terms of situational feasibility kind of studies, but it will be quite interesting to hear, Institut Pasteur as well as, COVAX Kenya. And I'm aware a little bit from our colleagues here in South Africa of their work, but to just try to understand what is the feasibility and the responsiveness of both the public and the private as far as this agenda is concerned for vaccine production. We've spoken about the issue of regulations and so on, and where is as well the nexus with academia or research institution to be able to partake in this vaccine production. What are the incentives that we have in place? I'm not sure if such studies have been conducted. There's one in Rwanda in August, actually.
Janine,
yes.
Janine, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes, Patrick, yes.
We've got 5 minutes left, and so
okay.
can we just pick up on your 2 points?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
thank
you.
So let me jump in here and say, Janine, you're quite right that this dialogue needs to be expanded. But this particular dialogue this afternoon is a very specific one, focused on the bank's offering. This is both African Development Bank and AfreximBank, and the manufacturers' needs and their challenges. So this was very specifically designed for that. There is a multiplicity of conversations happening across the continent, both with AVMI leading and with AVMI supporting, together with the African CDC, etc. We'd be very, very happy to engage with you offline to make you aware of what else is on the go and see where these ideas can be integrated. So thank you very much for that contribution. I don't see any other hands, but let me just give Simon a minute to perhaps share an insight or two on his experience in landing the support from the AfreximBank. Simon, you've got 60 seconds and your time starts now.
So Patrick, well, thank you for the opportunity. This is really a very short time for me to tell my story about the tremendous support that I got from Afrexim, Innovative Biotech, to be where we are today. It was really a training experience for us, and we are happy that we also contributed to helping Afrexim to come up with a framework for. So we're actually the guinea pigs, and it took a while, to get to this stage. But with the process that has been developed, I believe that other manufacturers that will be coming on board, we have it smooth, So we're happy to do that. It's been, like I said, a wonderful experience working with Mr. Zitto and Nafal. 100% support, series of Zoom meetings, that led to a physical meeting last week where we did the signing ceremony. I'm happy that they are embarking on supporting initiatives like this that will build an end-to-end vaccine manufacturing facility on the continent. As we know, for us to be sustainable, that end-to-end facility needs to be built. That will include the R&D component. So finally, we push this to African Development Bank. I think we have to adopt the war speed strategy, to make this happen on the continent. processes are really cumbersome. It takes time. You could be on a project for a year and so on. Not for projects like this, for roads, oil and gas, and so on, you can do that. But for vaccine manufacturing, I think we have to adopt the warp speed, strategy that was adopted during the COVID. And finally, Dr. Ghada mentioned the R&D funds, $150 million. So, of course, you know that R&D is supported with grant money, not debt. So I think we have to discuss, the strategy and how these funds can be utilized as quickly as possible. So I basically use this opportunity to thank the AfreximBank for getting us to this stage, which has opened a lot of other doors, and that's the advantage of working with them. And I encourage other manufacturers that are still looking for funds to quickly contact them. I promise that the process is going to be smoother than what we went through, because now they have a process in place for making this happen. So over. Thank you again, Patrick.
Thank you, Simon. We are on the hour and we need to wrap up. And before I hand over to Ghada to also say a few words, just a few thoughts from my side. First of all, thank you so much to all the presenters and the contributions from the African Development Bank and AfreximBank as well. I would like to suggest the following, that AVMI works together with the manufacturers to collate a set of questions arising out of this set of deliberations and dialogue this afternoon. After the manufacturers have been given some time to study the slides, and we can agree offline, Ghada, on what time frame we should set for that. And we continue the dialogue then through the structured set of questions that come out. And out of that, we will see how the interests of all will be best served. Should there be another kind of workshop? Should it be a bilateral set of conversations? But let's capture what the essence is from the manufacturer's perspective. Then you deal with something that is very relevant and of immediate interest to either a subset of manufacturers or specific manufacturers. And AVMI is absolutely willing, and it's our mandate to act as that connector and provide that facilitated platform. So with that, Ghada, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Patrick, and thank you, Dr. Simon, Dr. Maaroufi, and Michael, and everybody. This has been really great. As the VP coined it, and actually Patrick coined it after the VP spoke, this is like an open door. The bank, and actually here also we have Afrexim, we're saying we have an open door to listen to you. I think we have heard you today from AVMI and from the three companies, but definitely would like to hear more. I like the approach that Patrick, that you have just set across now, because yes, we offer a lot, and the funding is there, and the instruments are there, but there seems to be that we need to connect those, okay? And I think one webinar or one conversation of 2 hours is not enough. Yes, let us go ahead and frame the questions, and let us continue the conversation, right? So we'd be happy, Patrick, to receive the questions from you and Melissa. And we will work together as partners, Afrexim and the bank, and then we will respond, and then we will see how the next maybe dialogue will look like. But definitely, you may have seen that the bank is already speaking with several of like the companies here, where Dr. Kofi, Dr. Simon, of course, Dr. Elfil, and we'll be meeting with him next week. And so on, and would be happy if anyone would like to contact us. I just posted my email here. Would love to hear about your projects, your project proposals, and would like to work closely with you. As we mentioned, it's a dialogue. It's not about just looking at whether your project is ready. We know the projects are not ready, but then we need to work together and hold your hands and give you everything that we have. So I take your approach, Patrick, that we will be looking forward to receive a set of questions, and we will do our best to answer them effectively. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll meet again and we'll keep this dialogue going. Excellent. Thank you.
Before everyone goes, could we open our videos, all of us, the cameras, so that maybe Ekwa will take a photo of all of us. Ekwa, can you do that? Or Melissa maybe can do that. So let us all just open and there we go.